Wow, that's an amazing question. I somehow managed to land the largest tool manufacturer in South Africa as a client.
Mm-hmm.
We worked with them for I think it was 11 months. Completely flopped it.
Oh my gosh.
I was in a tricky situation where it was just my mom and I. And, my friends would be going out on the weekends and stuff. And we didn't have the money to I didn't have the money to go to the movies and join them. Let me ask you this question.
Okay. Today's guest is a creative technologist and entrepreneur using the power of storytelling and digital innovation to reshape Africa's narrative. He's the founder of JD Creations and Creator Community, where he builds experiences, tells stories, and connects a rising wave of African creatives and entrepreneurs. Get ready to meet the mind behind the movement, JD. Hello, Resonate community, and welcome to the best and the biggest sales and entrepreneurship podcast in the whole wide world. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Josh to our podcast.
Let's go.
Hello, Josh.
We are the
How are
Resonate
you?
podcast. What's up?
How does it feel? Because I know you also podcast. How does it feel when you're at other people's podcasts?
That's why I was so excited for this episode. Because I was like, damn, I get to be on the other side of the
Right?
table today.
Yeah.
So, really cool. I'm excited for this conversation.
yeah.
And let's see where it goes.
It's going to be so awesome. I can't wait to get into our conversation. Before we actually get started into the meat, because I'm really excited to talk to you. We have a little tradition here at the podcast, which is we get into a fire round of questions because we're trying to get to know you better.
Did you say a fight?
A fire round of questions.
A fire round. I was like, damn, we just made each other. Now we're fighting.
We're good. Peace, right?
Peace and love and joy.
Okay, cool. So I've got
Let's
a
go.
few questions for you. The first one is, if your journey had a soundtrack, what would the opening song be and why?
Cinema
Yeah.
by Benny Benassi.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Because my
that
life
song.
is a movie.
Oh, I see that.
You
Okay.
get me.
I got you. Oh, that's nice. Okay. All right. Look at you. Okay, cool. And my second question to you was, what was the moment you realized creativity could move people?
Wow, that's an amazing question. So, way back in the day when I was in high school, we used to shoot these video promos for our assembly. So, every now and again, we would have like a five-a-side soccer tournament or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And I remember when we were in matric, it was actually the mud fight. So, we had this tradition in our school where at the end of the year, when the matrics were leaving, the grade 11s and the matrics would have a mud fight on the field.
Is that why in the beginning I said we were going to have a fire round of questions and you're going to fight?
It seems like I always want to fight. So I don't know what's going on here. No, I'm actually a really chilled guy. But so what actually happened with that was we decided that when we were in grade 11, in order to gain the respect of the matrics, we were going to create a video before the mud fight in the assembly when we were basically giving them their farewell. So we created this whole elaborate short film where we stole some of their matric jackets and created this whole fight scene where someone got kidnapped and now they're in the basement and they're being interrogated and all of this stuff. So we spent a lot of time and effort on this video.
Yeah.
We played it in the assembly, and I remember before we played that video, those matrics did not respect us. They did not take us seriously at all. But by the time that video finished, they were all standing up, clapping, and giving us the respect that we had earned through that video. So I think when we had done that, it really showed me the power of content creation and how it can shift narratives and gain respect from people and change how people view you. So that's really where I think content creation and creativity, I really got to see the power of it in that moment. And then through then we carried it through into what we do today. So, yeah, that was the moment.
Sure. That's I literally want to dive deep into that, and I will immediately just after my last question, which is, what's a belief you held about success in your early days that you've now completely changed your mind about?
Wow. I a lot of the time when I was around 23, I would really beat myself up because I'd always think what would 16-year-old me think of me right now? Wow. And when I was 16, because we live in a world where you have all these YouTubers who are 21 years old that are millionaires driving Lamborghinis, living their best lives. I think what we tend to do is we kind of put a lot of pressure on ourselves to achieve that at a very young age. And I think by the time I had reached that age and I wasn't like driving a Lamborghini, I was like really upset with myself.
At
I was
23.
like, come on, why aren't you at those points in your life? Like, this was the plan, la la la. And I think that really demotivated me. But then I had a thought and I was like, who was 16-year-old me? And I was thinking about it, I was like, 16-year-old me was actually really dumb. Like, I'd learned so much. Exactly. I knew nothing about the world or reality.
Yeah.
And I think through that, it helped me let go of that expectation of myself. And I'd say that was my theory about success that I had to drop and let go. And ever since then, things have just gone up. So yeah.
I like that. I mean, I do remember that era very well, like 21-year millionaire, how I bought my first property at 21. This was like the YouTube era at that time. And I can imagine the pressure of just feeling like, I'm 21. I just can barely buy BBS at the time because you have a BlackBerry.
Oh my gosh. Yo, that stuff was go-to.
Yeah.
Shout out to BBS.
It was a lot. That's interesting. I really like that. I want to delve back to when you answered the second question around when you realized that stories could move people. We're in such an era now where content creation is becoming a thing. Like whether you're a business or you're just the content, like whoever you are, you have to be able to create some form of content. And I firmly believe that content creation is all about telling stories. But I want to find out from you, because this is something that I've noticed you've done for so many years. How do you translate story into motion picture? You know, because I think for the most part, it's like, especially for entrepreneurs, like I know what my products, how valuable it is and how amazing it is. But sometimes I just can't translate it to a piece of content because maybe you need me in the room to explain to you how awesome this thing is. But how do we translate that into motion picture and a piece of content that exists on a platform where we are not there? Because predominantly that's what you guys do at JD Creations.
Yeah, very good question. I think, you know, it's very easy to take something in your head and expect people to know what it is that you're talking about. But actually translating that into reality is a very difficult thing to do. And that's why I really love video, because video is really good at being able to do that.
Yeah.
So I could come here and sit here and talk about the lighting and like get the right angle and all of that stuff. But ultimately, it comes down to how you make people feel something. Because if someone feels something about something, they're going to actually take action on that. So that's really what we focus on. So people have different ways of doing that, different techniques. Some people are going to, like through the writing that they write a script with, they can make that feeling come through. Or some people, like what I like to use is music, because music really has the power to shift the way that you feel about something. So there's various different ways that you can do it.
Yeah.
But I think what we try to do in all our content is try to make someone feel something when they have consumed it, because we believe that through that we can drive action.
Yeah.
So there's different methods. We could sit here for like 2 hours and go through all those methods. But I think the thing that's important is when you're watching your piece of content, do you feel something about it? And if you don't feel something, then there's something wrong. And if you show it to other people and they're not feeling something from it, then there's something wrong that needs to be adjusted. And through that, you can find whichever method works best for you.
What I appreciate a lot about what you're saying, I think it takes a lot of pressure from a lot of business owners, because sometimes we think the feeling comes from like how powerful I'm going to sound and what I'm going to say. And you're basically saying it can be the small little elements. It can easily be a soundtrack that you put in there. It can be the pauses in between, but small little things that you incorporate into what you're really saying and what you're creating, which is very mind-blowing. Now, when we talk about telling stories, one of the things I noticed about your brand and your business is you guys center quite a lot of content, or just quite a lot of storytelling around how culture is very important. Bring me a lot into that, because I think, you know, sometimes we want to build global businesses and it's like, yeah, I can be a specific culture, but how do I translate that? Or is it even about my ethnic culture as a South African? Or is there something specific to the messaging that then reveals my culture to be able to sell my product?
So the reason why, like our motto in JD Creations is connecting Africa to the digital economy and the world to Africa. And the reason why we do that is because we believe that we have certain challenges that we face on our continent that you won't find anywhere else in the world. And what we see from that is we find very creative ways to overcome those challenges, right? So whether it be potholes or load shedding or whatever it is, we're always finding creative ways to maneuver around these situations. And that's what we love about the continent that we're on, is that we have so much creativity. I always call it like the spice or the secret sauce that we have here. And it shines through certain things. Like I'm just going to always revert to music because that's where a lot of like what we do is inspired from. But if you look at like some of the artists that we have going out there, like Tyler or Uncle Waffles, like why do they pop off overseas? The reason is because they bring something different to the table, something that the world hasn't seen before. Amapiano, you'll never find that in a different country. There's a reason why that comes from here. And it's because I believe that it's because we have certain things that we have to go through, certain environment that we have to maneuver. And that forces us to be creative in certain different ways. So we believe that we have so much value to offer the world that is untapped in Africa. Like another example that I always bring up as well is movies, right? You'll see there's Lion King, where they're just recreating the Lion King that we grew up. Like, guys, there's so many other stories. Like, why are we not telling a story about how in the townships there's, I don't know, this alien that lands in a township or whatever? Like, there's so many different ideas and creative stories. Not even that, even real life stories. Let's talk about Thabo Bester. Let's create a story around his life, you know? There's so much interesting things that are uncovered here. And we believe that we exist to be able to let the world know what we have here. And that's I love how you brought up like technology and creativity and storytelling, because we have access to the internet, which is one of the most powerful tools. Like I can sit after this podcast and have a conversation with one of our clients in the UK, right? That was never possible like 10, 20 years ago. We have this tool that's available now where we can broadcast these messages, these stories, and share it with people. But what we found is a lot of people don't know how to use those tools yet. And that's why our business exists. We come in to help people translate what's in their mind into a story and use technology to distribute it and amplify the voice of people in Africa. So that's really what we do, and you know what we are trying to be able to make other people aware of and teach them how to do it too through our creator community.
Sure. I want to delve back to the journey to you actually starting the business, because, you know, I'm of the belief, and I think with a lot of entrepreneurs that we interact with, sometimes what the offering that we start with usually isn't the offering we have 4 years later. There's a lot of development and work through that happens. And when you started, like, what was your thing? What problem did you want to solve? And then just take us through, what problem did you want to solve? And how did we end to where you are right now? And now I'm bringing that into context because sometimes there are people who haven't started because they're waiting for their thing. They're waiting to be able to say their motto so confidently. It's like, no, you're not. It will take you 5 to 10 years to eventually get to a point where you've got something solid you can confidently speak about. But those years are also very important.
100%. Like, you got to be moving. If you're not moving, you're not going to figure it out. So you have to be doing stuff. So like for me in the beginning, it was really like DJing actually in school.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, like that's actually where a lot of my entrepreneurial nature came from. So I was in a tricky situation where it was just my mom and I, and you know, my friends would be going out on the weekends and stuff, and we didn't have the money to I didn't have the money to go to the movies and join them. So I decided, let me find a way to like maneuver this, and I started DJing, and then I did it in my school for free at one of the youth events that they had every Fridays. And then from that, I landed up getting booked for birthday parties and stuff. And then I started making a little bit of money. And then I was doing the DJing thing, and it was nice and fun or whatever. And then one of my friends got a camera. And I used to go to his house after school. And I mean, I would never be able to afford that camera, but he had it. So him and we would like play around with the camera and just do stupid things, like try to capture an egg as soon as it cracks, or like we'd like throw an egg at a wall and try to capture the moment it smashed on the wall or something like that. And I got so obsessed with that because there was a concept behind that was so intriguing to me, which was how you could capture a split-second moment that if you just blinked at the wrong time, you'd miss it. But if you caught it on camera, that moment could last forever. And that idea was like, it really made me obsessed with this concept of being able to capture moments. So from that, I then, like through the DJing, I managed to get some gear and stuff. So I sold that and then I bought a camera because I was obsessed with that. And then throughout my studies, I would literally be like, I'm so glad we're at AMPD Studios today because like it's literally throwing me back to when I was studying. And we would literally roam the streets of Braamfontein doing fashion films and taking photos and stuff like that. And that's how I started with this kind of work. It was really just for fun and about passion. So we would go around. There was a thrift store. I'm not too sure if it's still around, called Moy House. And we would ask them if we could use some of their clothes. And we'd bring a whole bunch of models together, dress them in the clothes from the thrift store, go do like a fashion shoot all around Braamfontein, create all this cool content. And then I would post that content on social media. And then through that, I started gaining a following because people really liked the content that we're putting out. And then I was like, okay, cool. Like if I can gain this following, I can start tagging Moy House in the photos because they're letting us use the clothes. And then what we found is they kept asking us to come back and do more. And I was like, why are they doing that? And then I thought about it. I was like, nah, people are actually coming to this store because of the content that we're putting out. And then I was like, nah, like we can make money from this, surely. So then I started doing that. And then I was also doing like small little jobs here and there, like doing graduation shoots or matric dance shoots and stuff like that and getting paid for it. And then by the time I graduated, I had the choice, like, because I studied something completely different to what I do today. I studied BCom Information Systems and Economics, which is like way more technical than the creative space. So I was kind of at a crossroads at that point, and I was trying to decide, like, am I going to go down that corporate path where I know, like, there's a cushy salary and I could climb the ladder and get, like, but the thing for me was I knew how that journey looked, and I didn't like that. I wanted to take the path that was a little bit less clear, because then I could, like, what I've learned is that if you take the path where you're not too sure how you're going to do it, you're going to learn something new. Absolutely. You're going to grow in some or other way. So I was like, let me take that route. And then from there, somehow managed to land the largest tool manufacturer in South Africa as a client. We worked with them for like, I think it was 11 months. Completely flopped it.
Oh my gosh.
Because we had no idea what we were doing. But through that, it was a learning experience. And then from there, we were able to grow the business and, you know, broaden our offering through JD Creations. And that's how we got to where we are today.
When you say completely flopped it, what are the mistakes that you like see you made?
I love that question because everyone wants to talk about, I did this and I did that. No. But it's like, guys, you don't just do this and that. Like, you have to go through a whole bunch of challenges to learn.
It also takes, I think, a level of bravery and vulnerability to be honest about having like flopped something like that, you know, and realizing that part of the journey is not always the success. Sometimes you will get the client and you flop it because you really don't know what you're doing at that time. So I'm curious to hear more about that.
Yeah. I'm so glad I'm on this side of the table today because I love asking that question to our guests because that's where the source is.
That's what it means.
Exactly. Yeah. So, So in that situation, we were working with a big client. So we were on a fat retainer, which was really nice. But the problem is now you go from the situation where you literally are like struggling to like pay your rent and like get food.
Yes.
And now you're making all this money and you don't know what to do with it. Yes. So like the first thing that we were doing was we were just hiring people with like zero management skills, like just expecting them like to just throw stuff at them and it to be done.
Not onboarding.
Nothing.
No
live
systems.
Jive. We're gonna figure this out as we do it. So, I mean, that's how it works a lot of the time. If you're doing something for the first time, you kind of have to figure it out on the fly. But yeah, we made a lot of mistakes just in terms of how we were managing the people, how much we were paying them at the time, the way that we managed the relationship with the clients. Like they had a like very high expectation from us, obviously because they're paying us a lot.
Yeah.
We were trying to figure out how do we meet that expectation, but also grow the business at the same time. So there was a lot of confusion around that. But yeah, ultimately through that experience, you know, through all these different elements that we were kind of trying to figure out, we land up losing the clients.
Of course.
And then we were back at square one again. So yeah, I think the takeaways from that and the lessons learned from that was a lot of like managing relationships with clients. like setting the expectation is super important, because if you setting like this expectation that you can't reach or that's not in alignment with your business growing, then it doesn't become sustainable for you or the clients, and then the relationship breaks down from there. So like that thing of being able to set an expectation that still gives the client what they need but also allows your business to grow, that's one of the lessons that I took away from that. I think the other lesson that I took away from that was being able to hire people and manage them properly. Like that's a whole nother podcast episode on its own. That's so
true, yeah.
But yeah, we learned what not to do in that situation.
A lot of what not to do. And I'm also picking up like quite a lot from there. I think people management is a big one. But also what's becoming very heightened for me is like how sometimes getting that client and getting that money in your business can actually like set you up for failure.
Yeah.
It's like the money that you want, if you don't have the right systems, you are literally setting yourself up, because now that the money is here, but there's no systems, there's no processes, there's no HR or some form of there's a term that they use, but just some form of organizational structure that's there to be able to house these people. You say that you learned what not to do, and obviously one of them was like but tell me was all the HR stuff. Tell me from a financial point of view. Because I mean, you said something that really just lit a light bulb. Is like you're struggling to pay rent. Like you're going from we're just making it through to like, okay, like now you're comfortable. Now you're a bowler. Now you can hire people and etc. I also mentioned something about paying people. Did you pay them more than you should have?
Yeah, I think that was, I don't know. I don't know if we were paying them more than what we should have, but you know, what we weren't doing is we weren't looking at how much we were paying and what value we're getting from that. So like we were putting a lot of money into different things, but we weren't necessarily putting it into things that were yielding us the most value. And that's another thing that I think is a concept that people often like misinterpret, like this thing of value. Value, a lot of the time people automatically go to money, and it's like, it's not just money. There's many different forms of value. Time, like network, all of these different forms of value are important. And I think in that situation, we kind of just thought, oh no, because we're putting money in this, we're going to get value out of it. And that wasn't necessarily the case. So I think that was like a takeaway from that situation when it came to like paying people and that.
My mentor says that the laziest way to solve a problem is to throw money at it.
Yeah.
It's so, so important. Did you see anything change about you when you then had like more money? Or was there like spending habits from a business perspective and also from a personal perspective? What was that like?
Not too much. I think at that point in time, like we were still staying in the same place and like, you know, that lifestyle didn't really change much. And I think that's one thing that we did right is we didn't like go out and now buy a new car and like buy a new house and like all of this, or holidays and like spend money on these frivolous things. We spent our money, we invested the money back into the business. So I'm glad that we did that. We just invested in the wrong things. So unfortunately, no, I wasn't rocking Gucci and like and Prada. We were trying to invest the money. But yeah, I think we just invested it in the wrong things.
Yeah. You know, when you say that you learned what not to do, what do you think could have prepared you for that client before you got it, that could have made things better?
The thing is, like, I'm often like, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Like maybe if we had like, I don't know, if I had a mentor who had gone through that problem before and they like had a conversation with them, that might have helped. But you can't control what situation you're in. So like, I mean, yes, we can talk about what could have prepared us for it. But I think that thing that we spoke about earlier, like you need to just move, like just keep moving and then you'll learn as you go. Like, so as long as you are moving, something goes wrong, you put that behind you and you go on to the next thing and you take what you learn from that. So there's probably many things that could have like, you know, helped us avoid that situation. I think a mentor is the best thing that could have helped us because if, you know, I always say there's two ways to learn. Either you're going to learn from the mistakes of someone else or you're going to learn from your own mistake. And the great thing about having a mentor is a mentor has gone through those mistakes. That's how they can teach you these things. If you don't have a mentor, you got to learn the harder way, which is to make the mistake yourself. In this situation, we made the mistake ourselves. But I think definitely having a mentor would have helped us a lot.
Yeah. Sure. I think mentorship is a very powerful thing to have for at any stage, for anybody. Is it something you've invested in now?
Yeah. So I do have mentors
Yeah.
that I go to every now and again.
Yeah.
A lot of my peers are also my mentors. So I think that network is super important because when you are surrounding yourself by people or with people that are doing great things, that are all also making their own mistakes and moving,
Yeah.
you learn from their experiences too. And you can always call them up and say, hey, like, I'm having this issue.
Yeah.
I want to get your thoughts on it. What do you think?
Yeah.
And then they'll say, oh, well, I did this like 2 months ago and
Yeah.
it did not work. So don't do that. And then that can help guide you. So I think like when people say your network is your net worth, I think that is very, very prevalent.
Powerful.
And who you surround yourself with is very important for sure.
Did you ever struggle with pricing? Like,
yeah, 100%.
knowing how
I
much
still
to
struggle
charge?
with pricing.
Really?
Like pricing, I'd say, is one of the biggest things I struggle with, even now. And I think it comes a lot from this, like, I don't know what it is. Like some of us, we just kind of have a mindset in our mind that we just like what we're doing is not worth a certain price tag. And the one thing I learned from that was like, how do you measure the value of something? Like you might have a glass of water today, and because, you know, there's water running through the pipes and, you know, we're not living in an apocalypse right now.
Yeah.
That glass of water is worth 10 Rand. But now if the situation was different where now there's a drought, like there's a zombie apocalypse and no one has water, someone's going to pay 100,000 Rand for that cup of water.
Yeah.
So how do you measure how much something is worth? It's a tricky thing, right? And a lot of it's down to like how you value yourself, but also how your client values the work that you do.
Yeah.
And if you're not working for the right kind of clients that don't value what you do, you're not going to make money off of what you're doing. And similarly, if you're working for the right client who does value what you do, but you don't think that the price that you're charging is the price that you should be charging, then you're going to be undercut in the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
So that thing of pricing is super important and a difficult thing to navigate because it talks a lot about your relationship with money. And I think a lot of the time, like, I haven't really fully realized the value of what we're doing.
Sure.
So a lot of the time we've actually been undercut in the work that we've done. And I think one of the biggest changes that's helped me grow as a business was just charging more. Like, but the thing is, like, sometimes, like, as an entrepreneur, you're like, damn, what if they don't take it?
Yeah.
I don't want to go back to being broke. Like, that life was rough. I don't want to go back there. So you start making choices out of fear.
Yes.
Instead of choices out of faith. And when you make choices out of faith, that's when you start getting the blessings. So, that mindsets are shifting from focusing on like, oh, if I increase the price, they're not going to want to work with us and and instead of having a mindset of faith and saying, okay, if I shift this price point, you know, maybe they'll leave, maybe they'll stay, but it's in God's hands and whatever's meant to be will be. And through that, you'd be surprised. Like people start like pay the price that you were like, nah, no one's going to pay for this.
Yeah.
There's someone out there who will pay for it. But you just need to find the right person and you need to have faith and you can't make choices out of fear. Like,
yeah. And I think the fear conversation is huge, especially for entrepreneurs, because especially whether or not you've got a team, the thing is like you need this contract, you need this money.
Yeah.
And you don't want to do anything to make the clients not come back. And maybe what I've also learned in my journey is like the worst they can say is no.
Yeah.
Or ask for a discount.
Yeah.
But if you charge less, they're not going to be like, no, our budget was actually 500,000 Rand. Can we pay you more?
Yeah.
Versus if you charged more than the budget, they can always say, this was our budget. And can we pay here?
Yeah.
Which is very interesting. But what I've also picked up, especially within the creative and the digital economy now, is that it's like when you gave the example about a glass of water or the mug, right? It's easier to calculate how much this thing costs because I've got production costs, etc., right? But the creative industry is so different because it's like this thing comes naturally to you. You just generally are gifted with the ability to translate stories in people's minds into motion picture. Yes, the cameras and stuff, but it's like, how do you quantify how much that idea is worth that comes so easy to you, but other people see and they think, oh my goodness, this is like amazing, this is hectic, or we love this so much. And I'm still very intrigued on like what we spoke to Sylvester Chalke the other day on the podcast, and we were talking a little bit about that as well. Like what are the metrics to quantifying how valuable your idea is? Is it based on how other people react to it? Like if everybody goes, oh my God, you're like, okay, 20,000 Rand. If nobody nods or nobody does anything, you're like, 2,000 Rand. But what is the matrix? And I'm curious to hear your thoughts around that in terms of like, as you grow, what do you think would quantify a creative idea?
Yeah, the easy answer to that is analytics. Like if you're putting your work online and you're putting on social media, there's analytics that show the immediate impact of that, and you can use that as a reason to justify or increase your leverage in your negotiating tactic or strategy. So that's the easy answer. Mm-hmm. I like what you've spoken about as well, because there's also implicit value that isn't measured by metrics. So like, to give you an example, one of our clients is one of the biggest summits in South Africa, and they are funded by a government organization. So we've been putting out social media content for them, and we've got all the analytics and stuff. That's great. Numbers, okay, cool. But numbers are numbers, right? Impact is different to a number, okay? Exactly. Those are two different things. So it's very easy to get caught on both sides of the spectrum, where the one person saying, I got 100,000 views today. My question to them as well, how many sales did you make from that 100,000 views? Because I could have got 10 views and made more sales than your 100,000 views, or for those 10 views, if they were the right views. So you don't want to get caught up in the vanity metrics and say, big number. So like, that's the one thing, right? But then the other side of it is, like I said, you can have 10 views, and then the client might think, this is only 10 views, but you made 5 sales for 10 views. Yeah. So there's different ways to view it. I think the answer is somewhere in the middle. With that, the reason why I brought up that specific client is because, yes, we have the numbers, but one of the things that I saw was most impactful to help build our relationship with them, and now we're busy negotiating, a new deal with them. And I think a lot of the leverage that we got for that negotiation came from the fact that they were busy talking to their funders and they were negotiating a deal with them. And while this happened, while they were having those discussions, one of the clips that we put out of one of their speakers at the event went viral. Nice. And that impacted their decision in terms of how much funding that they're going to give them, because they could see the impact of what they were doing through the content we were putting out. So that increased our leverage in our negotiation with that client. So that was kind of a luck thing, because the timing just you can't control what's going to go viral or when it's going to go viral. True. But this is also why I say you got to make decisions out of faith, because that's like some other, I don't know if it's the social media gods or if it's Jesus. Yeah. But like to me, I believe it's Jesus. Like, he came through for us in that moment, and gave us the leverage that we need in that negotiation through that experience. So I think there's two sides of the spectrum. I think the answer kind of lies somewhere in the middle. Yeah, I like that, because I think we're both agreeing that it is sort of a complex situation, but there are scales around it that can help us measure that. Sorry to interrupt you. Yes. I think it opens up a very interesting discussion about the dead internet theory. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever heard of the dead internet theory. No, tell me more. So the dead internet theory is that there's a whole world on the internet that is just not people. What? Yeah. So, like bots and stuff. Exactly. So what you'll find is a lot of social media followers are actually not real. There's warehouses set up in different countries of phones set up with software that automatically goes through social media, likes and comments on things. And these are what we call bots. And what happens is, if you go to a bot farm and you pay them a certain amount of money, they will go to a specific video or specific profile and direct their algorithms to just engage with that profile. And what that does is it artificially inflates. And that's how you get these situations where you've got 100,000 views, but only one sale from the 100,000 views, because a bot's not going to go and buy your product. Why would they program their algorithm to now go buy a product? Yes. Like, they're trying to make money off of you. So I think there's a very interesting discussion about that. And I think that also people misinterpret like engagements online. Yeah. A lot of people have big numbers, but is it real engagements or not? And how do you measure that? I think there's a very interesting chat about that. Yeah, and is it engagement of the right people that you want to buy from you as well? Yeah, exactly. Because then you could, and I think that's the problem with going viral, is that you've now exposed yourself to anybody and everybody, and anybody and everybody's not your customer. Yeah. So you could get like 1 million views, but it's like nobody's going to buy, because it's just now been thrown in the faces of
every Tom, Dick, and Harry, and they don't have the buying power to actually purchase whatever it is that you're selling. That's such an interesting concept.
Yeah.
That is so interesting. Very, very
What are your
interesting
thoughts
to
on
look
that?
into.
Like, how do you navigate a world where you have this dead internet?
Yeah. I don't know. I think for me, right, I measure impact based on my specific KPIs. And I think maybe I'd start there for every business owner. It's like, what are your KPIs? If your KPIs are 200,000 Rand a month, then that's it.
Yeah.
Whether you get 1 million views or you don't, did we make the money? For me, that's the big thing. And then we have to then allocate our efforts towards making the money. I think by the grace of God, have tasted what it feels like or what it is to build a business off good money with less numbers. So like I used to literally film videos where I had 10,000 followers on Instagram, but I was making double my peers with like 30,000, 40,000, and would sit around and they're like, you're making this much? I'm like, yeah, I only have 10,000 followers, but because my 10,000 followers are an engaged audience with buying power.
Yeah.
So that for me has helped me then direct all of my content to the specific person I want to speak to. So the numbers don't become a thing. I mean, they're great when they do happen because you like the comments and the likes. It's like, oh, yes, amazing. And maybe they increase the probability of it reaching the right person. But my matrix are my numbers for me because those numbers for me are equal to impact, right?
Yeah.
If I put something out and X amount of people buy, I'm like, okay, X amount of people are interfacing with our product or our service. And because of that, they are now going to be impacted, or they get the mentorship, or they get to be part of the club, or they get this and this. So that for me, bottom line, I'm in business.
So it depends how you're going to view the content.
Yeah.
Are you doing it to make you feel good, or are you doing it to make money?
Yeah.
And I think with this, like our podcast, we don't even have 1,000 subscribers, but I can tell you now for a fact, we've made more money on that podcast than people that have 50,000 subscribers. Absolutely. Or whatever it may be. And the reason why is just because the way that we've gone about it is through a business mindset rather than through a vanity mindset.
Yeah.
So like that thing of now getting engagement and whatever, we can sit here and gossip about this next other person because we know people are going to like and subscribe to it and whatever. That's all good and well.
Yeah.
But like that's not why we are here to do this. We're here to make money. And I think there's important discussion in that because we live in South Africa. We've got the highest unemployment rate in the world, especially amongst young people. And I'm like, what are young people good at? They're good at social media.
Yeah.
We're good at creating content. We're good at being creative. Like we should be utilizing these skills to make money. It's just people don't know how to do that. And that's why I'm actually really grateful to be here today so we can have this conversation, and why I'm grateful that we do what we do, because we're teaching people how to do these things. But it all comes down to what you know. So
do you think that, to that point where we say, people know how to work around social media, do you think that essentially people know how to use it, but maybe can easily be caught up in the wrong sort of feedback from it? So I'll give you an example. A lot of young people have access to phones and they start creating some content, whether it's dancing on TikTok, creating skits and being funny, and then the numbers start riling up. But now people become addicted to the validation that they then keep doing what brings the validation, but then can't direct it to what brings the revenue.
Yeah, I completely identify with that.
Yeah.
Because when we were doing those fashion films, we'd get a lot of engagement, a lot of like love online. And then from that, we would look at the value that we were bringing the thrift store. I went to them and was like, let's see how we can negotiate something here. But we weren't able to land any deal from that. So we weren't making money from it. And then I had to let go of that. And that was a hard process. I don't know why it was so difficult, but like I went through a period of time where I didn't put out any content for maybe like 2 years because the content that I was putting out was not growing our business. It was only bringing us validation online. And then what also happened, which is another whole discussion, is the algorithm changed. So the type of content that you laughing at that, and I know why. Anyone who's in the social media space knows this algorithm. But so the algorithm changed. So the content that we were putting out was no longer even giving that vanity feel good.
And now you must learn a different way of filming. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And like I'm only like starting to get that now. And it took a long time to get through that because the ego play such a massive role in the situation, and it actually lands up harming you because now that's the other thing that I know we struggle with as creatives. You put so much time and effort and energy into this video. You put it out like this is gonna go viral. Like I've invested everything in this. $1 views, 200 views on TikTok, and you're like, damn, now I must get up and make another one. How am I going to do that? I'm literally getting nothing from this.
Yeah.
But the thing that you get from it is you learn. You have to keep moving.
That's true. And it's like what you're saying. It's like all these ideas and all this creativity, like creatives will wear them around their sleeves. And it's like if people don't like it, then it's a personal attack.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, I suck or whatever the case is. And it's like, no, you're running a business. People are probably not going to like the next 3 you're going to post.
But that's the other thing is like, why are you making this?
Yeah.
And that's what I also ask musicians. Like, you making this music, right? Why are you making this music? Are you making it to like become famous, become rich, blah, blah, blah? Or are you making it because you love it? And then a lot of time people will be like, no, I'm making because I love it. And then I'm like, so if you're making it because you love it, does anyone need to listen to it? Or do you just need to like it?
Because if you need to like it, it just ends there and you're good.
Exactly. It doesn't. If you like your music, then and you're making it because you want to do what you like doing.
Yeah.
No one needs to listen to it.
Yeah.
So why are you making it?
Shucks.
And that's what we need to ask ourselves as creators. Why are we creating? Are we creating because we want to build a business? There's nothing wrong with wanting to be famous or like get money to be able to sustain your livelihood. Or I don't know, maybe you want to have a private jet. I don't know. There's nothing wrong with wanting that.
Yeah, I do.
But same here. Hey, yo.
Please.
Manifesting it. Okay. It's fine. Next episode, we're going to be on a private jet.
Please. Recording inside the private jets. Oh, can't wait.
In the sky.
Right. That is such a true testament. We had, I think, one of our very few episodes a year and a half ago, we had some Kim Tlongo. She's an amazing like speaker. And one of the things, she's actually a global speaker. And one of the things she said was that if you want to do it for yourself, do it in the shower. And then feel good about it and then go about your day. But if you want to do it for the public and you want to do it on global stages, there's techniques, there's tricks. You actually have to invest into learning and becoming better and stretching yourself constantly. And for me, that was like such a big aha moment because it's like, yeah. Because I think sometimes we just leave it at like, as long as you love it. But it's like, yeah. But what about the customer?
But as long as you love it, you can do it for yourself. No one needs to see it.
Yeah, it's like do it in the comfort of your own home.
Exactly.
But we have a responsibility to integrate the love and the market and the people we are now also doing it for.
Yeah.
To bring the results.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that's why we should create. We shouldn't just create for ourselves. You can create for yourself. That's your choice. But what I think we should do is we should create for others. And in order to create for others, it's not just about you at that point.
Yeah.
It's also about the person that you creating for.
Yeah.
You need to understand what is that person struggling with? What is their pain points? How are you going to create something that helps make their life better?
Yeah.
At that point, you're not just creating for yourself. And that's the thing I think a lot of creatives miss, is they want to create for themselves and make money off of it and
Yeah.
But it doesn't work that way. You've also got to create for the audience.
Yeah.
So, but then, it can also go to the other side of the spectrum because now you've got these celebrities who now are just no longer creating for themselves.
Yeah.
They're just creating for the audience and then they become depressed. And then they don't want to create anymore. They feel like a monkey in the cage, just dancing for people all the time instead of doing what means something to them. So I think it's like finding that balance. How do you create for yourself and for the audience at the same time? Yeah. And that can be a tricky thing, but in order to figure it out, you have to keep moving.
I like something you said earlier. You said the answer's in the middle. Because both of the worlds do exist, but how do we find harmony to bring them back into the middle and actually build the life and the businesses that we want, which is very, very important. Oh, I like that. That's like so good. Okay, let's talk about the African economy. The African digital economy, right? So when I was building my brand and building everything that we now have at Resonate, I spent a lot of time taking international courses because there were people that I identified overseas that were doing it really well and the way that I wanted, and their matrix was similar to the matrix that I wanted to make, etc. How do you think, or how would you advise somebody who's from an African context, how do they begin to upskill themselves to compete at a global stage? Is that even something we need to be looking out for when we think of it? Because I always say that every time you put something on the internet, you've exposed it to the whole world, right? Maybe within the language that you use will determine how far you want it to go, but people can still translate it, whatever. But you've now kind of thrown it into the global stage. How do we become competitive in those global stages?
ChatGPT.
The paid version.
I mean, I'm on the paid version, so I'm not too sure what you get with the free version nowadays. I think there's a limit or something.
Yes, but I think it doesn't do that extensive research.
It depends how you use it. I think that's the important part. Yeah, okay. The prompt, but also you need to be curious first and foremost. This world that we're moving into now, curiosity is going to be the differentiator between the person who's succeeding and the person who's failing. Yeah, because you can have
that is so good.
Hey, it's the truth.
Yo, that's a quotable.
Yeah. Put that on a poster.
Yeah. It's like, wow. Yo, that's so good.
Yeah. No, that's honestly how I feel about it. I think when it comes to, AI and technology, we have the culmination of human knowledge at our fingertips. But if you don't have curiosity to ask a question, you will never tap into that wealth of knowledge. So you need to be curious and you need to question things in order to learn. Yeah. So if you don't have that curiosity, you'll never actually tap into the full power of what is available in front of you. So to give you an example, right, you're talking about skills and how maybe languages you can go on ChatGPT and get it to teach you about SEO in Zulu. Try it. Go try it and see how it works. There's what this technology is doing is it's lowering the barrier so low to the point where it can become accessible to everyone. Yeah. But if we are not curious enough to actually try it, someone out there is probably watching, I never thought about learning SEO in Zulu on ChatGPT. So the thing is the reason why I can say that is because I'm curious. I've thought about, how can we use this technology in different ways? So I think that curiosity is crucial when it comes to being able to leverage these different opportunities and the access to knowledge and information that we have. There's a whole nother chat about that because information and wisdom are two different things.
Yeah.
So, that's not going to solve all your problems.
That's another quotable.
But, hey.
Hey, you're giving it, eh?
You're dropping bars today. But it's the truth. Those two things are different. So you'd have access to information, but you don't have access to wisdom.
Yeah.
So, we need to figure out how to navigate these things. But I think the best place to start is by being curious.
Yeah. Are there certain practices or things that you do to maintain a level of curiosity in your business?
This is a question that I always ask myself is where does curiosity come from?
I asked you that question, right? Because my husband's very big on that. So he's the one that's been teaching me on curiosity and just be curious at everything. And we have these conversations. And I have actually cultivated almost a practice for myself that helps me be more curious is I give myself thinking time. I literally will time block an hour and say, I'm just going to go on ChatGPT on the internet and just freaking research how to be a better podcast conversationalist and watch videos. And because I think for me, what that does is I land onto something that then gives me something to think about and then so it's like a ripple effect of one question that led to several more questions that gave me so many answers to various things within my business. So for me, that's the big one that I do is just allocating time to think and not always be working. Because I think as entrepreneurs, you always be working until when you don't know what to work on, you feel very stressed and you've got so much anxiety. And it's how do you now go to that where you now start thinking? That's the first one. I think for me, the second one is just allocating some time to work on my spiritual life. That gives me a lot of curiosity as well. It's I'm a firm Jesus believer. And when I read my Bible, it's I'm always just trying to think about it on a modern day. I'm just imagine David was the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company. How would this person be running? And when God said this to him, what would that mean to the modern day CEO? So it's just being curious with different concepts of a spiritual life. So I'm curious to hear, is there anything that or maybe that's coming up right now, you're maybe that is a thing?
Hey, I feel like David would be a startup founder. And then like the big company is Goliath. Like,
Really?
no, I'm just joking. But
David would be the guy that uses ChatGPT.
hey, that's his stones. That's the stones
Yeah,
that he has
that's
from the river, like for real. But anyways, so I love what you said there, because what I'm hearing is what you've done is you've habitized your curiosity. So you've literally made it a habit to go have specific time allocated to learning something new. And it's funny that you said that, because as you were saying that, I was literally thinking about my calendar, and I literally have 2 slots every week that says learn something new. So I think that's definitely a great way to do it, is to habitize learning something new. Because what I've experienced, and like the more successful you get, the more busier you get.
Of course.
So you're doing so many things, and it's very easy to get to the situation where you just literally focusing on, how am I just getting by today?
Yes.
Like, I just need to do this, and this, so that this and this, that person are happy.
Yeah.
And then I've managed to get by. But it's not just about getting by. We're not just about surviving. We're about thriving. So how are we going to utilize our time and block out specific time to not just survive, but also thrive? And a part of it is learning something new and continuous learning.
Yeah.
So I think you've hit the nail on the head. Like, that's super, super important.
Oh, yeah. That's very, very important. I think Solomon would be a good entrepreneur.
Hey.
Yo, he'd be a billionaire. Like, I'm just thinking about it now. Like, I think Solomon would he'd be like the multi-billionaire that's like speaking all over the world, and like just so much wisdom, and it's got all these frameworks and systems, and Jesus would obviously top all of them.
Yeah, no, he's the head CEO.
Yeah.
Oh God, head honcho.
Yeah.
Top. Yeah.
Yeah, he would be like the billionaires. It'd be like God would be the billionaire, the ultimate, and then like Jesus would be like his.
I love the way we're now talking about Bible characters in business.
Yeah, it's like, because, the Bible also says there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
Everything, every single concept, it exists somewhere in the world, and has already been created. I think it's already been created, and I think that we have to qualify ourselves to eventually meet that as a revelation at some point in our journey, to apply it with the right wisdom. So,
can I ask you a question?
Yeah, ask me a question.
So you said the Bible says there's nothing new under the sun, right?
Yes.
And I think that opens up a conversation around, we're talking about AI.
Yeah.
And we were talking a lot about like the text side of it, learning and all that. There's also the creative side of it.
Yeah.
Image generation, video generation. What do you think about this new technology and how it affects creatives? Where like let's say, I don't know if you've seen with this new ChatGPT model that came out recently, everyone was doing these Studio Ghibli images of themselves and animations of themselves.
Yeah.
Like, do you think that Studio Ghibli should be paid for every time someone generates an image using their style? Or like what are your thoughts about that? Because there was an interview with the head animator of Studio Ghibli, and they asked him, like, what do you there were these students that had developed this tool that created this animation, and they were like showing him this AI animation and how like this was all AI generated, and his response was like, what is this garbage? I feel like this is an insult to humanity. Like, that was his response. So he obviously is like super against this AI stuff, and now everyone is using his style to create images of themselves.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts around that?
That is such an interesting question. So here's where I'm still exploring this thought, right? But how the just AI adaptation and its development is going to affect creatives. I'll say something that Mushambi Mutuma we've had on the podcast said, and he said that AI is not here to take anybody's job, but it's here to take the job of the person who's not using AI in their businesses. So how can it's like, I can create an animation version of myself on the go, but it's not really a thing I want to spend an hour or two of my time trying to build an animation of my podcast so I can release it, right? I might need an animator who could potentially use that same tool to make it better, make it more refined, and also make it different than everyone else's. So I think that there's still room for the people that currently exist. I think maybe the call for them now is, how do they integrate their skills with what's already exists? Because it's only getting better. Like, this is just the foundation. This is just the beginning part of it. I'm sure it's going to be creating cartoons that animators are expensive, by the way.
Yeah.
But now we might be able to create that on a budget for ourselves, a lot more easier. So I don't know. I just think that I also do think that the introduction of new things builds and creates new careers and new career paths and new industries as well. I was saying this to my partner the other day, and I was asking him, like, do you think that there's going to be like people who start businesses as AI administrators? Like, AI is great, but I don't I don't want to spend too much time on ChatGPT, like putting prompts and organizing it. But could somebody actually do that as a service where they are somebody who understands AI to a point where I can say to them, hi, this is what I'm trying to research. Please, can you get an AI to do this for me? And they are the ones that actually administrate AI to give me this report or to give me this research. So I think there are a lot of things that are opening up. I mean, the rise of content, I was thinking about this yesterday as well, that the only shows that we used to see growing up was like Oprah Winfrey, Judge Judy, like that was
Judge
right.
Judy.
Like, but if you look at Oprah Winfrey with like her and the guests, that was a form of podcasting at some point, right? And we were just like, I want to have an Oprah Winfrey show. It's like, yeah, but now you do, and you've got a platform to put it out there, right? So the availability of tech and all these resources opened new careers for everyone. We don't all have to line up for auditions now. We can just build our own things, put them on YouTube and everything. And I think AI is going to do the same for creatives. It just needs people who are willing to adapt and not want to stick to how things have always been, because I don't think there's time for that. I think there's a lot of room for adaptation.
Yeah, I think there's definitely going to be AI HR people that are managing AI agents that perform different tasks. And that's what we kind of doing a lot of that now, even. Like through our agency, that's something that we offer, is we'll go into a company and say, okay, cool, what AI agent can we create here that's going to offer value to your company, right? So like I mentioned the summit earlier on, why can't, like they work a lot with founders, why can't we create an AI agent that they can make accessible to all of the people that come to their conference and say to them, look, if you're going to, let's say you're working on a pitch to an investor, why don't you upload your pitch into this AI and it can give you advice on how to improve this pitch, or give you questions that the person might ask, There's no reason why we can't create an AI that can do that.
Exactly. But someone has to create it. As the founder, I don't want to do that. I don't have the capacity. I don't even want to invest my time. So hence I'm saying I think there's going to be more opportunities that open themselves up. And it's only the people who are willing to adapt to the times that will see these opportunities. I think you've been able to identify them. But people who are hell-bent on convincing everyone that, no, if you do it from scratch, it's much better, might be left behind.
I honestly think, though, like let me ask you this question.
Okay.
Would you rather have a picture of the Mona Lisa or the Mona Lisa?
The Mona Lisa.
Of course, right?
Yes.
Why not have the original?
Of course, absolutely.
So now, do you see where I'm getting with this?
I do.
They're basically the same thing, right?
I do, but adaptation at a widespread adaptation at the speed it's going will start invalidating the original. Will start making us like question which one is the original, but also does it matter?
Do you think that because the Mona Lisa is a very old painting, right?
Yes.
Like the Mona Lisa was probably around when printers were invented. Do you think the value of the Mona Lisa decreased in value when printers were invented and people could buy a picture of it?
Oh, that is so good. No.
And why is it valuable? Because we choose to put value on it. So that's where value lies. It's ultimately what we choose to value.
And it's creation.
Would you, like, I could go to someone, most people probably wouldn't say this, but like if I went to someone and I asked them, like, would you rather have an AI generate a Studio Ghibli image of you, or would you rather have the guy himself make it? Most people would probably say, okay, I'd rather have the guy himself make it, or maybe they don't care. I don't know. Yeah. It depends on the person. I can tell you now, a person who's a fan of Spirited Away, which is one of the films that they made, would much rather have the actual guy make it. And they'd probably pay that guy to make it as well. They wouldn't want the AI garbage. So there'll always be a market for these things. It's all about what people value. If someone values the person who made it, they're going to pay the person who made it. It's like with these YouTube channels as well. People really struggle with this concept of like, why do people pay money to like subscribe to a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's because the people, that person who's paying money values the person who's making the content.
Absolutely.
They have the means to support that person.
Mm-hmm.
If I had the extra money, why wouldn't I give it to them? But I think what stops us from thinking that way is a lot of the time, especially in South Africa, is we often think with a scarcity mindset rather than abundance mindset. And it's understandable why we think that way. It's hard here, like even in our business.
Yeah.
I'm telling you now, we make a fraction of the amounts of money that other companies in America or the UK do, doing the exact same work, probably even less. Not even as good as the way that we do it. We make a fraction of the money compared to them. And it's just because that's the way our economy operates right now, which is why we need to grow the economy. But it all comes down to value. So if you're going to work for a client that's in the UK that has a much bigger budget than the client that's here in South Africa, you can do the exact same work, but you can get paid more for that work.
Yeah.
Just because the client values it more or they have the resources to provide it. The only way that you're going to be able to think about that is to think in an abundance mindset. So I think as young people, we need to shift from the scarcity mindset and start thinking from a mindset of abundance, which is, don't get me wrong, it's hard to do because we're coming from a place of scarcity.
That's true.
I'm going to go back to our conversation about pricing. The reason why I didn't charge more is because I was thinking from a scarcity mindset, because I don't believe in the value of what I'm doing. Well, I think that the person who's paying it maybe doesn't have the budget for it or whatever. So like, I think if we can shift that mindset, we'll start to see a lot more value in the way they're doing. We'll also understand this concept of value as well, because like I'm talking about it now, but even I am still like trying to figure out like, what is this thing of value? How does it work? And the reason why it's tricky is because we're all humans. Humans apply value. So like humans are complicated. So this thing of, I don't know, it's an interesting discussion.
It really is, Josh. And it's making me think so much. There's this concept, I think I've done several videos around this, which is this concept called value perception, right? That value is literally a perception game. So, but if you understand that it's a perception game, you'll understand that you can do value management, which essentially is how do you then build and create something that you manage in a way that drives the perception that you want. So I'll give an example. A lot of people would ask, and I think I've spoken about this before, a lot of people would ask, how do you get like so many speaking gigs? I'm like, I just packaged myself in a way that is valuable to the perception that the people I want to book me do. So what does that mean is I'll invest in the way that I look, in the way that I dress, in the way that I speak. We've gotten that down that I'm a smart girl, right? But it's like the package that comes with the smart girl needs to be something that somebody's willing to pay for. So that's the value management, so that the perception that is tied to the value is worth the price. So if I am sending your summit people an invoice, they mustn't look at me and say, why is she charging that much? They must say, oh, okay. Yeah, this is expensive. Or we actually thought she was more expensive than that.
Yeah.
But because you have managed from a packaging point of view. It's like if you walk into a supermarket and there's like different pastas, there's always a pasta that looks expensive. Sometimes it's like maybe, it's like it just looks different, right? And you will see sometimes how like, because it's shaped different, they can price it 5 rand more. That's a value perception. It could be the same size.
It's the exact same pasta.
Yes.
It's a different shape.
Just a different shape. It's bows this time. Or it's like small little coils and the kids love them. And that's when we can get into pink tax, right? That's a form of value perception. It's the fact that because it's shiny, it's bright, it's for women, it's sensitive, they've built a perception around this value that allows them to name a price. So what I always advise people is, yes, if you've locked down the fact that what you offer is this great, let's work on the packaging. Because that packaging must say to people, this is what I'm paying for. This is what I'm paying for. It must come with a package. That's why how we look is important and how we show up is important. And then we can, behind the scenes, you can upskill yourself, read the books, be curious and whatever. But when you're done, you can't show up scruffy because what you have in your mind, we can't see what's in someone's mind. So I think it's the same thing within our products and our services. Is like, I would say to my team that when we rock up to a pitch, they must think, okay, these people are coming here to like, they're going to charge us so much money, right? Yeah. Until then you realize what we're charging you, you're like, it feels like it's worth it because of the packaging, because of how you saw us came in and how we looked and, the presentation, how we were able to build this relationship with you. So I think just the value perception becomes very important, but you have to, it's like, I literally want to build a department in our business of value management.
Would you say that's branding?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's absolutely branding. It's just that when we say branding, people now think we are saying something else completely different.
Yeah. What I love about what you're saying is you said people feel like they know what they're paying for.
Yes.
And that's ultimately what it comes down to, is how do you make this person feel? And how someone feels can come through in any single touch point that you have with that person.
Yeah.
So if you meet the person and you're smiling and you shake their hand, you give them a big hug and you're super excited and energized, that's going to make the person feel excited and energized.
Yeah.
So when you pitch to them, they're going to approach that pitch with energy and excitement. But that can only happen based off of how you present yourself.
Exactly.
And I think that's where a lot of us people in business get it wrong.
Yeah.
Is I get it, you're tired, you're feeling demotivated. But this is why it's so important to get a control of your mental health and your mind. Because if you can shift that stuff in your mind, it comes through in your actions, and the people around you feel better. They're going to be much more likely to want to engage with you or take your product offering or listen to what you have to say.
Yeah.
But where we go wrong is a lot of the time we don't think about that. Like, okay, I'm sending this message at 10 o'clock at night when the person's getting ready for the bed, asking them if they're going to pay my invoice. How's that going to make the person feel?
Yeah.
They're going to be like, why are you messaging me so late at night asking me for money? Like, I just want to go to bed.
Yeah.
So, it's all these little things that I think we miss. And I think we miss it because we don't understand the concepts of feeling and storytelling and branding and value perception. So I'm glad we had this conversation because I'm also learning from what you're saying as well.
Josh, I think we're going to have this conversation again. There's so many things left on the table that I think we need to open up. But thank you so much for joining me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you. Sure. Resonate community, I hope that you enjoyed that conversation. It was absolutely amazing. You guys know every time we have a guest on here, they are bound to come back because this conversation is nearly over. Thank you for tuning in wherever you're watching us from. And let me know in the comment section what really stood out for you. Did you have an aha moment? Because I had a lot of them. And let us know in the comment section where we'll see you guys on our next podcast episode. Goodbye.